I never meant to find it, not in that wasteland of smoke and silence. The colony had been burning for days, the sky bruised with ash and the air so thick it clawed at my lungs with every breath. My boots crunched over broken glass and bent steel as I searched for anything useful, rations, tools, even scraps of wire. Survival doesn't leave room for hesitation. You take what you can, when you can. That's when I heard it. A sound so out of place I froze where I stood. Not the groan of metal collapsing, not the distant crackle of fire, but something softer. A whimper. Weak. Starved. I followed it into the wreckage of a collapsed habitat dome. Twisted beams arched overhead like ribs of some long-dead beast. I pushed aside a scorched panel and my heart stopped. Curled in the ash was a creature no bigger than a wolf pup. Its fur was patchy, singed at the edges, striped faintly like a tiger's. Its ribs pressed sharp against its skin, its eyes glowing dim amber in the shadows. Alien. Predator. Dangerous. Every instinct told me to turn away. But then it tried to crawl toward me. Its limbs shook violently before it collapsed, too weak to even cry. Those eyes, hungry, desperate, locked onto mine. Not with menace. With need. My hands trembled as I tore open one of my last protein bars. I crouched low and placed it in the ash. The cub's nostrils flared, and with a shudder, it devoured the food in frantic bites, whimpering between mouthfuls as though afraid it would vanish. I should have walked away. I should have let nature take its course. But as it licked the wrapper clean and curled against my boot, purring faintly, I knew the truth. That one choice had changed everything. For 3 nights it followed me. Limping, stumbling, but never letting me out of sight. I didn't give it a name, I didn't dare. Naming things meant attachment, and out here, attachments could get you killed. Still, I couldn't stop feeding it. Scraps of dried meat, the last crumbs of ration bread. The way its eyes lit up, the rumble of a purr that shook the ground as it curled near my fire. I told myself it was temporary, just until it was strong enough to survive on its own. On the 4th night, the forest proved me wrong. The fire burned low, casting little more than a circle of orange in the black. I was cleaning my rifle when it came, a sound so deep it made the trees themselves tremble. A roar. Not human. Not mechanical. Primeval. My blood turned cold. The cub jerked upright, ears flattening tight against its skull. Its head whipped toward the shadows. I raised my rifle. My heart hammered so hard it hurt. Then she emerged. Her silhouette alone froze me. Massive. Striped fur gleaming faintly under the twin moons. Fangs long as knives, eyes glowing molten gold. A tigress, but not like any born on Earth. Her muscles moved with otherworldly precision, her presence radiating command. She stopped just at the edge of the firelight, her body coiled like a spring. The cub gave a pitiful cry, stumbling forward. She growled, low and guttural, before nudging it toward me. My finger tightened on the trigger, certain I was about to die. But she didn't lunge. She didn't strike. Her gaze flicked between me and her cub, and in that moment, I understood. I hadn't just fed her child. I had bound myself to her family. Life with them was terrifying in ways I hadn't imagined. The cub, stronger now and playful, darted through camp like it owned the place, nipping at my boots and tugging at loose straps. I'd wake to find it sprawled across my legs, its purr so deep it rattled my chest. But the mother never strayed far. She lingered just beyond the firelight, pacing, watching. Always watching. Her golden eyes never blinked, and every time I shifted too quickly, her ears flicked back, her muscles tensing. I didn't sleep much those first days. But gradually, I noticed something strange. She wasn't there to keep me away from the cub, she was keeping the forest away from me. When the shadows stirred, when the faint gleam of red eyes circled us in the night, she moved first. Her roar shook the canopy, and predators fled before they dared test her claws. When carrion beasts tried creeping closer, one swipe of her paw split them open like fruit. I realized I was under her protection. Our lives braided together in ways I couldn't have planned. On hunts, she drove prey into the open, the cub chased clumsily behind, and I, rifle in hand, finished what they started. Together, we feasted. I patched wounds with human bandages, while she dragged carcasses to the fire when my aim failed. Even the cub began to understand the rhythm, bounding between us with an energy that almost felt joyful. Some nights, as the flames crackled, I'd catch her eyes reflecting in the dark. There was no malice in them anymore, only something I couldn't name. Recognition, maybe. I wasn't just surviving with them. Against all odds, I was belonging. And the thought unsettled me more than the forest ever had. The peace shattered with thunder that didn't belong to this world. At first, I thought it was another storm rolling over the ridges, but the sound grew sharper, layered with a mechanical growl that shook the ground beneath my feet. I looked up, and my stomach dropped. Ships. Not human ones. Sleek, metallic beasts cutting through the clouds, their hulls painted with symbols I didn't recognize. Engines burned trails of fire across the night sky as they descended, casting the forest in an alien glow. Searchlights lanced downward, sweeping through the canopy, tearing the shadows apart. The Tigress froze, ears pinned flat, muscles coiled tight. The cub pressed against her side, whining softly. I raised my rifle, though it felt absurd, like aiming a twig at a storm. Then the air split with the sound of boots on soil, armored soldiers fanning out from the ships. Their armor gleamed silver blue, their rifles glowing with a dangerous hum. They moved with purpose, scanning, their guttural language rasping through comms. My gut clenched as one of them held up a device, its lights flaring when it pointed toward the Tigress and her cub. The cub screeched, thrashing against its mother's flank. She roared in response, a sound that made the soldiers hesitate, just for a heartbeat. That was when I understood. They weren't here for me. They weren't here for survivors of the colony. Their eyes, their weapons, their scanner, all locked onto her. Onto the cub. The Tigress stepped forward, placing herself between the soldiers and her child, hackles raised, teeth bared. I stood beside her before I even realized I'd moved, rifle lifted, my breath steady despite the panic clawing at me. The hunters had come for them. And if they wanted the cub, they'd have to go through me too. We ran like hunted animals, because that's exactly what we were. The Tigress led the way, her cub clinging to her flank as we tore through rivers that numbed my bones and forests so dense they clawed at my skin. She moved with tireless power, leaping over fallen trunks and scaling cliffs as though gravity bent to her will. I stumbled behind, lungs burning, boots slipping on wet stone, but I never stopped. I couldn't. The hunters were relentless. Their engines rumbled overhead, their searchlights cut the night apart, and their voices hissed over comms, closing in from every direction. Plasma bolts scorched the ground around us, setting trees ablaze in sudden bursts of fire. Every time I faltered, every time my legs screamed to give out, I saw the cub glance back at me with those glowing amber eyes, pleading, trusting. That was enough to keep me moving. At night, when exhaustion forced us to stop, I found myself asking why. Why risk everything for two creatures that weren't even human? I had no answer until the cub pressed its head against my chest one night, curling close as though my heartbeat was the safest sound in the universe. In that moment, the answer was clear. Family isn't blood. It's choice. And I had chosen them. When the hunters finally cornered us in the ruins of an old mining shaft, I knew there was no running left. I set traps with what little I had, rigged grenades, collapsing supports, sharpened stakes. It wouldn't be enough, but it might slow them down. As the cub whimpered and the Tigress growled low beside me, I leveled my rifle at the advancing shadows. Man, cub, Tigress. Together. If they wanted a fight, then a fight was exactly what they would get. The first clash was chaos, light and blood tearing through the ruins. The hunters poured into the shaft in formation, rifles spitting plasma that lit the walls a blinding blue. My traps went off in a chain of deafening blasts, supports crumbled, smoke choked the air, screams cut short as steel crushed armored bodies. But too many made it through. The Tigress moved like a storm unchained. She was fury made flesh, her roar shaking the stone, her claws rending armor like it was paper. She ripped one soldier apart with a single swipe, crushed another beneath her weight, her striped fur streaked with blood and ash. The cub, small but fierce, darted between legs, snapping at exposed throats, buying me moments I didn't deserve. I fired until the rifle clicked empty, then drew my knife. Every strike was desperation, every movement survival. I fought like a cornered beast, slamming steel into joints, dragging enemies into the smoke, refusing to fall. But the hunters pressed harder, coordinated, disciplined. Then a shot struck her. The Tigress staggered, her flank seared by molten fire. She roared but stumbled, her massive body shuddering. The cub wailed, throwing itself against the soldier who had fired. He laughed, raising his rifle to finish it. Something inside me snapped. I didn't think. I didn't hesitate. I tore the weapon from his hands, drove my knife into his throat, and turned the stolen rifle on the others. I screamed with every pull of the trigger, until the chamber overheated, until nothing moved but smoke. When the silence finally fell, I collapsed against the stone, trembling. The tigress lowered her head beside me, her breath hot and ragged. Blood smeared her muzzle, but her golden eyes met mine. Not predator. Not beast. Ally. Family. And with a slow, deliberate motion, she licked my face, sealing a bond that would never break. Weeks bled into one another, the forest becoming less a prison and more a kingdom. The hunters never returned, or perhaps they did and simply never survived long enough to tell the tale. Rumors spread among their kind, whispers carried in intercepted transmissions, about a human who fought beside the War Mother, about a family that could not be broken. Fear is a weapon, and we had become its architects. The cub grew with terrifying speed. Its once fragile frame now carried the power of a predator in bloom, muscles rippling under striped fur as it bounded through the undergrowth. It hunted at my side, its movements sharper, smarter, as though it had learned both from its mother's instinct and my own strange human cunning. When it caught prey, it would glance back at me, tail flicking proudly, waiting for my nod before devouring its kill. The tigress healed, her flank scarred but her strength unbroken. She no longer lingered at the edge of the firelight. She lay beside it, her massive body stretched within reach, her breathing slow and steady as though daring the world to try again. I had stopped flinching when her golden eyes found mine. There was no fear left between us. Only trust. When the colony survivors stumbled upon me, gaunt and wide-eyed, they stared as though I'd become something unrecognizable. They asked how I had lived alone in the wild, how I had fought off the hunters, how I hadn't starved or vanished like so many others. I only smiled as the cub padded from the trees, its stripes gleaming in the sun, the tigress towering behind it. They flanked me like shadows, silent, unyielding. I wasn't alone, I told them. And the truth was undeniable. They weren't just theirs anymore. They were mine.